Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Division 2. Now, this game has been on a lot of people's minds as of late, including mine. Now, I have 133.5 hours in this game, and I haven't even played half of it yet. And so, the question I want to answer for you is how does a game like this hold someone for 133.5 hours and still have more to offer? Now, I gotta give you some context as to why I'm even talking about this game right now. All of a sudden, it was just a random day of the week, and suddenly the game exploded. Thousands of players were suddenly jumping on, and the player count just jumped up massively. And I suppose it had something to do with the sales that were going on. You could get this game at the time like super, super cheap. And it was blowing up on social media. I'd seen so many clips and videos, and the algorithm was really pushing this to me for some reason. And so after seeing all of this content and videos and being pushed, I was like, you know what, let me give it a go. Now, to be transparent, I already own the game. I got it back in like 2024, and I played about 10 hours back with a couple friends, and then I sort of bounced off it. Not because I didn't like it, but it was one of those things where I just thought I had to play it with my mates, and if not without them, then I couldn't really be bothered. But if you know anything about this game, then you'll know that 10 hours is basically nothing. That's kind of the tutorial, and that's something I had to understand very early on. But the clips, man, I kept seeing these shorts and these videos, and I was like, okay, let me give this game a real solo chance this time. Let me go in and actually use my brain. Now, this game surprised me. There were quite a few things I didn't expect, like the sheer volume of content that this game has, for example. There are so many missions and challenges and manhunts and side quests and just different modes that you can play. Now, the world itself is amazing. I absolutely love just running around and looking at different things and getting myself into all sorts of different situations. Learning the map is really fun because these certain parts become a lot more familiar to you, and then suddenly it clicks, and then you kind of just feel like you know what you're doing. And one of my favorite things about this game is the combat. I think the combat feels so satisfying, and it's so good to just take on so much chaos at once and just go absolutely crazy. Now, I will say, I prefer this game on controller. I like how it feels on controller. However, mouse and keyboard is just as fun. So depending whatever your flavor is, you can go both ways. But for me, I think controller is just the best way to experience this game, in my opinion at least. And when it comes to like building and items and all of that stuff, to be honest, it's actually quite a massive rabbit hole that you can go on. Like, there are so many things that you have to end up thinking about. However, it's kind of one of those things where if you've played this game long enough to start thinking about these things and to where all of these parts of the building aspect apply to you, then you've already committed quite a bit. Like, this is not easy because the combinations you can come up with, the synergies, and also just the sheer admin of like the tinkering system and crafting and refining. You can go so deep with the items and the way things go in this game, but you can also keep it quite casual, and that's what I like. You can just sort of find what works for you and what you're happy with and sort of coast that until the end game, because that's all you really need. Is just as long as you can survive and keep active, you're good to go. Now, the one thing is there is quite a grind in this game. I feel like we need to acknowledge that if you're gonna think about playing this game. However, it's not a very punishing grind, and it's very unlike a lot of other games where the grind itself feels like a second job. Like when I hop on, I've got to put an hour and a half of just admin or grind or whatever. It's really not like that. The way they go about it is pretty interesting because it is a live service game. After all, you'll just sort of do similar missions or similar rotations over and over again, but not necessarily in like a back-to-back setting. Like, you're never going to be in a situation where you need to spam this one mission 10 times. It's not that kind of a thing. But what I can tell you from my experience is that the grind never put me off of the game, and that's kind of where I found the charm was. I really didn't mind the grind as well, and I think a lot of people won't mind it, especially in this context. There's something about the satisfaction that this game gives me between completing the missions, those loot drops, crossing things off of the list, and just there's so many little things that you can do, and there's always a little challenge or something that you can work on. Now, my favorite part of this game is the summit specifically. That's like my favorite thing. It's just this building of 100 floors, and each level is just escalates in chaos. And I think that for me has gotten a lot of playtime out of me. I just love the fact that I can keep going and going and going and just have so much combat and go all the way to floor 100, which I have, and I died because I'm not strong enough for whatever the fuck's at the top there. But it's amazing. It's definitely my favorite part of the game. And there's also something very therapeutic about this game for me. I don't know what it is, but this is a really good solo game as well. A lot of this game, and we'll talk about it just now, involves a lot of other players if you wanted to. But what I like here is that it allows you to be solo and just go on your own adventure. You play at your own pace, and the world sort of waits for you, which is something I really, really appreciate. And so for me, this game is for people who want a world to disappear into and sort of just run around and do things at your own pace. Like that, for me, is the magic here. And I really like that it doesn't punish you for taking breaks. Like, life happens sometimes. I had to go away for 2 weeks for work and I didn't really get a chance to play. But the game is going to be right where you left it. I mean, obviously, there's updates and seasonal content and things like that change. But for the most part, you're not going to be punished for taking time off, and things are going to just be there where you left it. And when you jump back, you just sort of get back into your groove and you start playing again. And I really love that. And that for me was why I was so emotionally drawn to this game, and I just found myself thinking about it so much and wanting to go back over and over and over again. And this is one of those games that I've been playing the most out of absolutely any game that I have right now. The thing about this game that blows my mind out of its skull bones is that after 133.5 hours, I still haven't touched about half of the game, if not more than that. Every single second of my playtime has been fully solo, which means I haven't done anything co-op. I've not touched the Dark Zone. I've done none of the PvP modes. And to me, that is insane. Like, you have to deep this. That if I've played for over 130 hours and there is still an entire other game, an entire version of this game that I haven't touched, that's just sitting there, that just goes to show. I think that for me is the strongest argument for the sheer value that this game has to offer. Like, that's crazy to me. Like, I don't think you get it. Like, there's a lot of stuff. I'm actually, let me read you a little list of this thing quickly. There's obviously the campaign, there's the open world, and which, by the way, the free roam has a lot of these dynamic activities along the way. So there's lots of stuff just running around to do anyways. There's the manhunt and the seasonal content. Then we've got the co-op and PvE stuff like Countdown, the Summit, Descent, Incursions, Expeditions, Classified Assignments. There's also the Dark Zone, there's Conflict. Like, guys, let me tell you, there's a lot to do in this game, and I have literally only done one thing in Washington, DC, and obviously a little bit of Warlords of New York, which is the DLC, and I don't even have the second DLC, which is Battle for Brooklyn. And without those two DLCs and all the PvE and PvEVP content and all the extra stuff, I still managed to get 133.5 hours. And that should tell you that even at that alone, if that's all you want to do, there's still so much to do, and it's so worth playing, in my opinion. But I have to be honest, there's a couple things about the game that really frustrated me along the way. And like, I got really mad. I was like, guys, Ubisoft, what the fuck are you doing? For me, it was the bugs. Now, this game has quite a lot of bugs in them, but I want to make it crystal clear that I'm not saying that this is a super buggy game or it's something like that. To be fair, this game is quite old. It's been out for quite some time now. It just saw a resurgence in 2026, and that's kind of what it was. But it is a kick in the balls when you're playing and you're in the groove and then something happens and you're just thrown completely off course. Like, for example, the final boss fight in the Warlords of New York expansion, Aaron Keener. It's kind of this one bug where if you fight him, you are just simply not allowed to die, because if you die, then you restart the fight and try again, but then this time around he just doesn't come out of his room, so you stand there with no one to fight, nothing to do, and you're just stuck for hours and hours and hours. There's absolutely nothing you can do except restart the mission. And it was a pretty long mission. and I was like, this is long, mate. I couldn't give a fuck. I hopped off that thing and I moved on. I never went back, which I should probably do now. Maybe I won't die because I'm a lot stronger, but that's kind of the point. The RNG loot system does also piss you off now and again because you kind of need specific things in order to get really deep into the weapons and the tinkering system and the items and stuff. So you do rely on just the roll of the dice and you hope that the gods love you this particular day and give you what you need. However, at the same time, it's not like you can't obtain items. What I really like is that you can pretty much go after any kind of loot that you want and you can pretty much get your hands on it, but it does depend, especially with the higher rarities of the items, which is really what you want, honestly. That's where it gets really, really frustrating, and there's kind of nothing you can do to influence that. And obviously, with every game, like, the community has ongoing complaints, and the amount of complaints I see every day, sometimes it makes me wonder if this game's fans actually love this game or if they're just playing an act online. But I have to acknowledge that there are active complaints here, and the thing is, I don't give a fuck. I don't read what they are, and I don't actually care, because this is my argument as to why I think you should play this game. Is because if I have to play this game for 200 plus hours before the cracks start to show and then things start going awry for me, isn't that a good thing? Like, how much content have I gotten out of it before I actually got some form of an issue that made me walk away from the game? Like, that's not bad. Like, what game today at a AAA price is giving you 200 plus hours? And like, it's not that many. There are not many games that are going to keep you hooked for that amount of time anyway. So as much as I would love to ask you to consider subscribing to this channel, liking, leaving a comment, and also signing up to my newsletter in the description down below for free, I'm not going to ask you to do that. Instead, I want to be the reason that you pick this game up and start playing it. Because if you've been on the fence, get off that shit, install this game, and give it a go, because I promise you that you will not be disappointed. My name is Tofu, and if you've enjoyed any of what we've talked about today, then let me know down below, and I'll see you in the next one.